What's your name?
My name's Zoe Levitt.
I'm Naveen.
I'm Ruth Becky.
Jonathan.
Jonathan, you have a minute? What are you building?
I am the founder of Luv Actually.
Glass is powering an experiential data layer for consumer brands.
Don't know if you gave me a solution, would I actually use it?
Our human desire is to actually be surrounded by more and more plants.
I think a lot of these ideas feel like you're in your 5th year or 6th year of trying this.
We want to help reduce subscription fatigue and those hard to cancel, free trial traps.
If Stripe's doing X, how are you able to do Y?
Find your niche, right? Dominate one niche first and then get the rest of the world.
Welcome to the feedback loop, both to Marty and to everybody else in the crowd. So if you haven't been to the feedback loop before, if this is your first time, every single week, or most weeks, sometimes we do rain check, we bring about 7 founders in front of a live audience on stage in New York City to give their minute pitch. And then they get feedback from me and a guest venture investor, feedback about their storytelling, their narrative, the core essence of their startup, both to push them forward from a pitching perspective. Most of these founders also tend to be very early stage, so also we get into the concept a little bit. But the whole idea is no matter how strong you are as a founder from a product perspective, from a go-to-market perspective, from a technical perspective, the thing that can still hold even the best founders back is the pitch.
Perfecting the pitch is hard.
All conversations are always fantastic because the resume that you bring to the table, and I think they're going to be really, really valuable to the founders here. You're an investor, you're a founder. On the investing side, the names that you've put money into are fantastic. On the founding side, you have sold 3 companies to Twitter, WPP, and Eventbrite. So, kind of no joke acquisitions. I think of you as being, again, kind of a two-sided player for thinking about, I'm a fan. Are you a fan of baseball at all?
Yeah.
So, there's the sort of baseball player that's a utility player. They can play a little bit of first base, a little bit of second. Maybe they can even catch. And maybe you're the startup equivalent. But that's how I think of you. Marty, for the sake of the crowd and the audience at home, how do you introduce yourself?
Oh yeah, it's so hard, right? Because I started my career as a designer, became an engineer, and then founder, turned early stage VC. And then now I'm back at the founder again. We still deploy capital out of the venture fund, invest in early stage startups, usually pre-seed and seed. But now we have a new startup, which I won't pitch. This will be for the other startups to pitch. Another show, another time. But yeah, wearer of many hats over the years. I've played all the roles from janitor to designer to front end to back end to CEO, COO, co-founder, founder.
Which means essentially you've judged pitches, you've heard them, you've crafted them, you've revised them, you've rejected them, you've accepted them, you've gotten excited about them, you've changed your mind on them. So I think that's what the founders here are going to get before we bring them up and give them, the in the moment feedback on what they're building or how they pitch it.
I've celebrated, I've cried, I've been on all parts of the pitch. The ones that went so embarrassingly bad for myself, and the ones where you knocked it out of the park.
Well, so and from all of that, before we, give them, you will see what comes up as patterns and trends and commonalities. But before we're even biased by that, what do you think about what you might be good at or what you've learned over time about the core pitch when you've had to help either form so many or form so many yourself?
The number one piece of advice I give is a lot of folks will say, you've got to hear 100 no's before you hear a yes. I don't believe in that necessarily. I believe you've got to give 100 pitches or 99 pitches before you've perfected your pitch. So I just think you need to get in front of as many people as possible, as many meetings as you can, and just keep giving it. And then what you're going to become good at, what you're going to be terrible at right out of the gate, but you'll learn to become good at it, is listening for how people react to the pitch, which I think this is a great show because it's going to accelerate that. But why are people dozing off or tuning out? Or if I only get a minute or 30 minutes with somebody, what took all the oxygen out of the room? Like if I have only 30 minutes with you and we spent 25 minutes talking about the thing I don't want to talk about, I did something wrong, right? I need you talking about the thing I want to talk about.
Well, and essentially the way to, I tell a lot of founders to think about it is every single one of these is a conversion funnel of some kind. Yeah. And so depending on where you are in the conversion funnel, is that early meeting and you need that next meeting, or are you at the partner meeting and you need to be closing the deal? That too becomes a big game of listening and a big game of kind of reflexively thinking about what's going on the other side.
Yeah, and last thing on that, just because I feel like a lot of people don't want to hear this because they're naturally not good at sales. It's a sales game.
Yeah,
you've got to be, as a founder, you have to be good at founder-led sales. You have to be good at actual sales, but everything is sales. How you recruit talent to your team is sales. How you keep talent on your team is sales. How you talk to investors is sales. How you close pitches is sales.
it's as much as founders sometimes have to build that skill set. The best thing about it too is after, if you successfully raise, if you are in that early stage moment, and you have to sell your first 100 customers, you also get fantastic at the activity of sales, and that's the best part about it too. Is if you're not good at it at day zero, you will be good at it if you persist and you get on the other side.
Yeah.
That in mind, let me sell you though on one more thing. Marty, you're wearing the adventure fund hat. You've invested in, let's name a few, Figma.
Some of the names you would know are the
Beehive.
Figmas, Chimes. Beehive is our favorite here out of New York. I always like to say for early stage investors, it's all the startups you've never heard of that I'm most excited about, right? But there's the ones where a decade ago you wouldn't have heard of them, the Coinbases, the Chimes of the world. But today it's like, oh, okay, I've heard of that startup. That's exciting that you're in it. But it's a patience game too.
Well,
but you don't have to sell me on free swag.
Well, here's the free
especially
swag of the
hats.
day, and you've invested in Swag Up, by the way, too.
Yeah, Swag Up.
But the best part about this free agency hat, so it is a free agency corporate hat, but it says represented on it because however you want to think about it from a philosophical perspective, you can be representing any sort of topic, any sort of idea. I recommend all founders, when you make your swag, make it wearable by people who don't want to proactively be shilling you, because then they'll get asked, oh, where'd you get this hat? I get asked all the time when I'm walking down New York, where'd you get this hat? And it opens a conversation. So Marty, will you be represented today?
Yes.
Love it.
And swag is super, we gotta loosen it up, big head. Swag is super easy in that, just think for a second, when someone's giving out a free shirt, have you ever walked by and not accepted the shirt? Don't make that shirt, right? Just think what's the shirt that I wouldn't walk by? What's the shirt you would pick up? Whatever's on that, because it's probably not just your logo, right? It's got to be something interesting.
Well, and ultimately, again, it's part of that conversion funnel, something where you think someone's going to be excited to pick it up that first time, and then suddenly they become a representative to your brand. That fit well?
Fits perfect. Well, it's a little loose, but it'll work for the show.
Work? Awesome.
We'll tighten it up later.
Well, listen, Marty, appreciate you wearing it. Now we're ready. We're geared in. We're locked in. Crowd, ready? Let's woohoo! Let's welcome our first founder to the stage. Let's get this thing started. Come on up. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Naveen.
Naveen, nice to meet you. Are you
Nice
ready
to meet you too.
to give your minute pitch? Get some feedback.
Always
Fantastic.
ready.
Tell us, Naveen, what are you building?
So I am the founder of Luv Actually, and we are an AI-based dating and relationship coach. And it gives personalized and expert-based advice for people to reach their unique relationship goals. The reason why we created it is because people are really overwhelmed because the market for connections is saturated, but people are making, very shallow connections. And especially with, we've now had a decade of dating apps, and they've really changed the dating landscape to where people no longer know how to build deep and meaningful connections. And from our research, we found that at least 60% of singles want that deep and meaningful relationship. So we've designed this to help them achieve that.
Well done. Good job. Under a minute.
Thank you.
So Luv Actually, great name because it's a movie, right?
Great
Yes.
movie.
Okay. So, my first question to you, and I'm often a broken record when startup founders pitch, is I think most founders lack, and this is my first bit of feedback for you, is the touch and feel of what you're building, because you set up the problem, and I think everyone can empathize with this problem. And we also, anyone who's paying attention to the macro of this problem, there's a lot of reporting on this problem.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the practical, better version of the world that you want to build? What does that look like or feel like? What's the user experience?
So what I always say is that even my personal mission is, if I can make 1,000 people feel seen, heard, and loved, then I will feel like I've lived a fulfilled life. And that's really what a good relationship is about, is for you to feel seen, heard, and loved. And that's the change I'm trying to create. And by helping people understand themselves first and foremost, that's one of the big things we do. We have a personal development section where you can uncover your values, your attachment styles, all of these things about yourself, because that's the first key to having a good relationship with another person.
And that's all focused on a solo user experience, or is it multiplayer? Am I also interacting with?
It's all solo user experience, except for we added a community piece, because what we were finding through research is that, when people are getting the advice, it may be amazing advice, but it's very hard to integrate into your life if you're trying to do it by yourself. And so the AI, because it's privy to all of the chats happening, it can actually group together people who are having very similar issues. and then they can help each other in a completely anonymized but like online forum to like, oh, okay, like I got the same advice, I have the same issues, like we can kind of hold each other accountable to integrate this as a practice into our lives.
On that last part, I'd love to quickly just jump into how is the universe of users already hacking the solution together? Like a common thing that I'll see is people will take screenshots of their Tinder back and forth, and then they'll ask AI to kind of analyze the conversation. And the joke is the AI always writes back, he's just not that into you, but like it's supposed to be this, kind of therapy discourse, right? So tell me, because what I don't know from the pitch was, I think everyone can agree the problem exists. You don't need to convince me of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you gave me a solution, would I actually use it? And this is one thing that I've learned over the years is everyone will talk about a problem. And everyone say, oh, I would totally use it if you made it. And then as soon as I go and build it, crickets. Nobody ends up using. We see a lot of this with like to-do apps, event discovery apps. There's a lot of commonplace personal financial management apps. Everyone wants it. Everyone wishes they had a better one. But as soon as you give it to them, they never put in the time or the effort.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that eventually I'd want to learn from something like this. I'd have to see like churn numbers and retention numbers to know does anybody actually care? And I think if you could get in front of that by just saying, hey, Marty, they're already doing it. And the way they're doing it's ridiculous. And I've got a better way.
Yeah, so a couple of ways that we've seen people using our apps, which is really interesting. One is people actually using it on dates. So they're sitting there, they're really confused about something the person said or did, and they will literally go to the bathroom and like have a little chat. And so this has happened very frequently.
I do this with
It's really
ChatGPT when I'm
interesting.
having like conflict with my employees, and I'm like, okay, am I right? What conversation should I be having? So I love this use case.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one is there's like a spike around like 3 a.m.
Oh, so they're there thinking very deeply about.
It's like all the rumination that's happening when you can't contact your therapist at that time, So they're all contacting this AI coach and like having all these very like almost existential conversations.
And how far along are you? Like when did you so it sounds like it's launched.
Yes, it launched a few weeks ago. We have about 350 users right now. At least 200 are like very active and
I want to like
engaged.
point to something Marty was saying. You answer actually slightly better in some ways, but there's a way you can even add to it. Because one of the things he was encouraging you to think about is what's a proxy in the world that people are already doing. And the reason he was saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, is like when you can include that as part of your pitch. Basically, you come to me and you'd say, look, here's what Luv Actually does. And today, people are going to ChatGPT for this, and we can see evidence on Twitter and TikTok when you see people having conversations like this. And this is what we're trying to build for. And here are one or two early anecdotes. But the reason you'd start with the proxies that currently exist in the world is you have a lot more of them.
Oh,
and you'd use it as evidence of like hundreds of thousands of people are doing this on TikTok and ChatGPT and these other solutions right now. So that's the proxy for the evidence.
Can I give the proxy now?
Yeah, go for it.
So TikTok is like inundated with relationship advice, and most of it is terrible, like really, really bad, like cringy. Same with ChatGPT because it has this like, it has no guardrails, it has nothing built on top of it. So it may give you great advice, it may give you terrible advice. So that's the problem. Like people are being led in all kinds of weird ways. A lot of the relationship advisors on TikTok, for example, will encourage you to play more games, which is taking you away from your relationship goals.
More
even
games with
further.
your partner.
More games with your partner or potential
I think this
partner.
has to be part of your pitch too. And I'm curious, Marty, what you think about what I'm about to say is like talking about how the current solutions drag us away philosophically or societally from the right answer. And I think people are more tapped into that than ever because we have a loneliness epidemic. We have a problem with people are now frustrated with online dating. Again, if you're on certain sectors of being too online on, let's say, X or whatever, like you'll know that people are talking about how the games are becoming a problem. And so that drags an investor into your philosophical thinking of like, here's your worldview as part of, and you did that as part of like, here's what I want to solve in dating. But by talking more about where the generic solutions or the community solutions today fall short, literally. What do you think? Is that too much?
Well, I'd want to learn, more about, this kind of relates back to me like monetization, the capitalist side of me, how are you going to make money? Because if I think about some of these TikTok influencers that are giving you advice, some of their hook is entertainment. Right, so they have to be funny, they have to be edgy, they have to say the thing where all of us looking like, don't do that. Right, but that's like the thing we all tune into, right? If it was actually really just good, solid advice, we probably wouldn't watch. Right, there has to be a little bit of a car wreck. But that's how they monetize, right? Their audience. Now the question would be like, how are you gonna, if you think that that's a bad way to do it, like what is your approach? And then what is, because now I am curious, like what would the willingness to pay? Is anyone gonna pay a subscription to this? Would I take the, the inefficiencies in not productiveness of ChatGPT because it was free versus paying you $2.99 a month, $4.99 a month because it's better? And this is what I don't know yet, and I'd be interested to find out.
So we just launched paid conversion. So far we've had maybe like 10% conversion, but we only have like 10
You're
days
so
of
early
data.
that I'd recommend that when you're in this sort of a conversation with an investor, don't go to the existing numbers.
Okay.
Go instead to the theories you have. We
Okay.
think we could monetize based on a subscription that's $3 to $10 a month, or we think there might be something related to a one-off transaction fee, or we think there might be an upsell. The reason not to go this early is you're still exploring.
because our
This is not
numbers-
necessarily evidence.
Got
So
it.
think when you're in this sort of a pitch mode this early stage, here are the theories, here's the first one we're gonna test. We just launched it. We're excited to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Because if it's 10%, if it's 30%, we've done this enough. We know that can be manipulated in a good way, as in you can still iterate and test. By the way, for the sake of time, we have to move to the next one, but an idea while you were talking, it'd be interesting for you to pitch this as like, if this works, you actually continue to subscribe to it while you're in the relationship because it's good advice. Unlike the entertainer TikToker, where you're like there when you're in this angsty trying to figure out a relationship, we're so good, we help you build such a healthy relationship that our long-term monetization, unlike anything else in the dating space, doesn't have success churn. In fact, we have like success retention. And that'd be like a really, I don't know if that's where you want to go.
Everything you have against the dating
We
apps,
do
right?
actually,
If
yeah.
Bumble really worked,
Yeah.
nobody would ever return. Right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that would be the true success
Yeah.
metric. And yours, if it really works, it should be the reason why I come back all the time. Because I have to assume this relationship's the healthiest I've ever had. I'm using the app. It has to be, the anomaly has to be the app, right? It can't be the partner. So it's like, it has to be the app. So I'm just never going to leave. And you would stick with me through the entire relationship.
Can I ask you one question? So one of the things that we're noticing, so we have 3 Gottman certified relationship therapists who have just joined our board, and they're really excited about our product. And so we're thinking of more like benchmarking against therapy or like relationship therapists for like price points. For the future, how do you feel about that? And because we actually do have like couples using it as well who are in existing relationships.
I mean, I think it's
So
a way
it
to move
does
up
have
market, a
that
way to charge
longevity,
more.
yeah.
So I think it's a really smart way to think about it. And this is one where you've got to test it and you got to put it to
Yeah.
the market, right? But I would think, I can't think of any other way to really position this. Like I don't want there's already friend.com. I don't know if I need an AI friend for dating
Yeah.
life, right? And I don't think you should compete there.
Yeah.
I think if you're really going to win it,
Yeah.
you go all in and be like, yeah, we're not going to replace your therapist,
Huh.
but we are going to be the thing in between that monthly meeting with your therapist. Because my assumption is that most people that would buy this probably have previously had a therapist or go to therapy or currently do, right? They're not going to be someone who's just avoided it their entire lives and like all of a sudden they're going to get, because they're also probably not going to have the same success with this because they're not going to stick with it.
Yeah.
That's great feedback.
Thank
Awesome.
you
Thank
so
you for sharing.
much.
Absolutely. Great job. So I actually want to go to domains for a second because you are skilled at getting domains.
I love a good domain.
You have Marty.com, which is fantastic.
If
from a
anybody
personal,
wants to email me, Marty@Marty.com.
That's
Super easy to
awesome.
remember.
Is there a funny acquisition story there or luck or?
Luck/privilege. We'd sold our first company to Twitter. So I had some disposable income and I just emailed the dude. And I had acquired other domains in the past for startups, but never anything that short or nice. But I went in, told him a number, I thought it was fair. I was like, this is the only number I'm ever going to give you, last and final. And I just got lucky. He wrote back and was like, I'm in. I was like, oh, probably could have got it for
Sometimes
less.
you just got to ask and have a little bit of disposable.
Yeah.
And then you have agree.com for the latest dig too.
Yep.
So you clearly value buying a domain. The story from a few weeks ago is friend.com, which is
1.8 million.
1.8 million. It's like an AI pendant on your neck. A lot of people don't realize that when those deals are made, there's usually some structure. So it's not 1.8 million of that startup's cash immediately going away. But you and I even talked about this, I think, during one of our last shows together, where it's like, what's the value in a startup founder early on betting essentially on a domain? How do you think about it both as a founder, but also as an investor?
Yeah, I mean, I think different use cases. I don't think everybody needs a nice
Or
short.com or
nice
spend
$1.8 million.
That's right, yeah. But for his particular example, I think it's all of the press is around this domain name. So
Right.
smart move, not
Right.
worth 1.8 million.
Right.
But there's other intrinsic value, and then again, he's going to spread that cost out over a period of time.
Right.
I'm a big believer of it's an asset on the balance sheet.
Right.
I don't know if they resell it for 1.8, but they sell it for more than one, somewhere between 1 to 1.8. So someone somewhere at some point, if things don't go right, get their money back. But there's certain times, like when we bought agree.com, because ours has to do with e-signature and money movement. I don't need agree.com to get my customer. I can agree.io will be just fine. The problem is my customer's customer. If they're going to send something we're like a competitor to DocuSign. If they're going to send it to you for signature and you're going to sign and then you're going to move the $50,000 through the platform in a secure payment portal, you're going to feel a little, if you've never, the customer's customer, if they've never experienced Agree, let's agree .io just doesn't resonate as well.
The trust factor.
Right, I built-in trust, right? I'm paying for trust, and I know what I'm paying for. He's paying for virality. He's paying for the fact that everyone he leaked that price on purpose. He wants everyone to talk about it. He wants to get in Forbes and Wall Street Journal, and it worked. And he's in a market where people kind of want to talk about wearables, and they kind of want to make fun of them as much as they want to love them. And so he's just going to go right into it. And he's like, hey, make fun of it all you want, because every second that you tweet about how stupid you think it is, that's a tweet for me.
All right, let's bring our second founder up, shall we? Round of applause. What is your name?
Hi, I'm Ruth Becky.
Ruth?
Yep.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Visiting this week from Seattle, New York. My
Oh,
third day here.
fantastic. Third day here ever, or have you been to New York before?
20 years ago, maybe, one day.
How's this trip so
It's
far?
good, yeah.
It's the best city ever, so, Are you ready, Ruth, to tell us what you're building
I
and
am
get some
ready,
feedback?
yeah.
Fantastic. You have a minute. What are you building?
All right. So I'm Ruth Becky, and I'm founder of Plantmatch. And our mission is to help hotels to provide in-room plants as a living amenity. So think of the last time that you checked into a hotel. Maybe you noticed some really nice green plants in the corner in the lobby, maybe 2 or 3 sitting next to the elevator. But when you got up to your room, the windows were closed, the air conditioner was on, and not a spot of green in sight. So we want to change that. So as climate change continues to worsen, our human desire is to actually be surrounded by more and more plants. So our mobile app provides a way for a hotel to take their already existing and new collection of plants and to offer that as a opt-in amenity for their guests. So they get a little bit of revenue from it. We get a little bit of revenue for the hotel. It helps them increase their daily RevPAR, which is their measurement. And it also gives them a way to demonstrate that they have a commitment to sustainability.
That's about a minute. Round of applause.
Thank you.
Do you want to finish that thought, or does that feel complete?
Yeah, so they get to demonstrate that they are committed to sustainability. And for the guests, there's scientific studies that show that even just looking at a plant reduces our stress, and that's good for everybody. Thank you.
Well done. I want to give a little bit of immediate pitch feedback. I think you have good micro stories in there. I changed the order. And part of why I changed the order is we got to the sustainability point in a surprising way after we were in this hotel capitalism point. And so that kind of took me out of the funnel you got me into of thinking, oh, interesting. She's thinking about hotels, how they think about a customer's journey up there, and then sustainability hit. I almost want that point of we want to be around greens as a society early. Then you get to the hotels, and then I'm up in the hotel room that's missing the green. So by the time I'm missing the green, you've already made that point versus bringing it up post, again, that transaction story with the hotel.
The first thing I thought too is this is a unique one where I wouldn't normally give this advice, but I kind of want to hear the problem / what everybody wants first. And then I want you to kind of come in and be like, solution. It's obvious now. It's oh yeah, as opposed to who you are, what you do, and then kind of tell me why everybody wants it. Because I think people can visualize quickly, and I think you helped set that room up where I saw myself in a hotel room, and I knew exactly the one you were talking about with the 62 degrees and freezing. Yeah.
But one of the challenges for me in thinking about it, I'm curious, why just hotels? I get that hotels and their relation to the customer, there's this missing moment where it's not as green as it should be, and they might have a reason to, but it feels constrained.
I'm actually iterating. I started 4 years ago with a completely different C2C model for a different app. Went through Founder Institute and a couple of other accelerators. And, C2C stuff is hard. So I was like, what is a viable B2B model? And I'm starting with hotels because there's so many of them. It's scalable. I mean, New York City alone has thousands of hotels, and I've been here this week partly to reach out to some of them and, get some connections going. Um, Once I do my initial proof of concept with just hotels and prove that, of course, it can be replicated in other industries, co-working spaces, co-living spaces. I even considered a employee benefit model at one point. But you have to start somewhere, right? And prove it out and get real revenue. So that's
How hard is
what
it to
I'm
take
working
care
at
of the
right now.
plants?
So most hotels already hire some sort of service provider that already waters their plants in the lobby, right? The ones that just sit in the corner. It's really no different if they're already, using that same provider to take care of those plants, but add a little bit more into their collection and then take those ones in the collection and rotate them in and out of the rooms.
So picture a closet with a bunch of bed sheets that somebody goes in and grabs and puts them in a new room. Now, is there going to have to be a similar closet with rows of plants, or are we talking, hey, there's only really 20 plants and 20 rooms get access to this?
What we want to do the price point at. One of my ideas is to kind of pitch it as plants are living art and put a higher price point on it. In that case, a hotel doesn't, they might have a collection of 20 nice size living plants that they put in and out of guest rooms who choose it and are willing to pay for it, but at a higher price point.
So the guest has to be willing to pay
Oh yeah, it's
extra
an opt-in amenity. Yeah. So there are hotels that already put a lot of investment into, like, one guest room is all green and everything, and the people who stay there pay a premium for that. So this is simply making it a little bit more of a hotels since not 9/11, since pandemic has struggled, right? They are right now going through a comeback, and part of what they're doing is upselling. So they're taking different amenities and offering those things as a new way to little by little get more income. So this is a living amenity. It's actually something new. Some hotels are letting you bring your pet. So why not have a plant in your room? It's a really simple one. A lot of ways I could go techie, add some AI features, all that. But really what I'm after is just proving out the simple model and getting the question answered. Is there a demand? Are people willing to pay money to have a plant in their room during their 3-day stay? And then, of course, there's the longer term, like serviced apartments, people who go on extended business trips. Maybe in those cases, it would be an amenity that their employer would be willing to pay for them or something. But
You're in Seattle, right?
I'm in Seattle, yeah.
So have you done any testing with this willingness? Because I'm what I would think, me as first-time founder on this idea would be, I would be within a 20-mile radius of a bunch of hotels, and I would have a place that I lived. I'd have a bunch of plants, and I'd do a deal with one boutique hotel, and I would say, hey, when somebody agrees to pay the extra $20, $50 a night, whatever the price is, ping me. I'm going to drive over there, right? Like a startup founder, I'm going to bring the plants and they're going to be ready to go. And then we'll have shown that, yes, people are at this hotel, this many percent of people that stay are willing to pay. And then they actually give them like an NPS afterwards to say they actually preferred their stay.
That is the type of model. I don't actually want to get involved in the actual dealing with plants. In most states, you have to have a license as a registered horticultural provider, retail, wholesale, all of that. So my product as a startup is actually simply the tech app. So in my previous iteration, I built a C2C app that allowed people to buy, sell, swap, adopt plants. Marketplace. I'm just right now in the process of vetting out a new tech co-founder to take my existing code, repurpose it, and then get those types of proof of concepts going in my local area, New York too. Yeah.
Why are you building this?
I am building this. It's nothing to do with my day job or my day career or anything. I love plants. I lived in Beijing, China for 4 years, and I just see the increasing impacts of climate change. And I want people to be able to connect on many, many more levels with the nature that still exists around us, to protect it, to treat it as a highly valued object as we go forward in this dealing with the reality of climate change. So
the reason I asked, and this is going to be maybe some firm feedback. I think a lot of these ideas feel like you're in your 5th year or 6th year of trying this, and that you're grabbing for anything that you can. I don't think anyone, even except for the most wealthy of clients, is going to pay to have it in their room at that point. I get the idea of like, there's certain suites, let's say at a hotel, they're the premium tier, but then you have to be concerned with like finding someone at a partnered hotel, and the app is there to give them that night's experience, to give them plants that day, versus just going to these hotels, going to these apartments, going to these employers directly. And I think a lot of founders who struggle in early years, let's say you had a simpler idea like that and there are reasons it didn't work, they learn the wrong lesson that it's not going to work. And so then they begin to iterate into more niche user experiences and more niche products and more niche types of transactions that are even harder. They're different because you're iterating and going, how do I make this work? But if you want more plants in more places, and you think there's an ability for you to have Plantmatch, and it's like some sort of matching, maybe it does involve care of some kind, whatever else it is, and there are reasons your simpler marketplace or transaction, whether it's consumer to consumer or whether it's you just selling directly to businesses, maybe the lesson there wasn't go even more niche in the user journey, but you just had to try again on the go-to-market. You had to try again on the experience. You had to try again on something else, because this feels, from my perspective, I don't know this nearly as well as you do, but everything you've described feels so hard to make happen. These user experiences feel so rare.
Yeah,
That's my caution
the
to you.
C2C model, quite frankly, was just there's a lot of liability in a C2C app. It's the
what about
revenue
B2C?
model wasn't there for the amount of effort that I would put in it, me and my team. So I had a 2-people team in China. I've gone through a couple of freelance developers here and there. And when I model it out, like, is it worth it for me as a founder to commit to that? And the answer is no.
What about just selling, kind of matching companies, no matter their apartments, hotels, Airbnbs, employers to plants that fit their space? And that's what you're like.
There's quite a bit of companies already doing that.
Got it.
The plant providers themselves, but they don't necessarily, there's a lot, if you're a apartment owner and you want to find you just go find your plant provider. So I don't want to be in that niche, but I do want to provide a really optimized technology and specific to hospitality. Most hotels, 80% of hotels, even in the US, use one particular suite that manages all of their amenities, funding, transactions. It's by Oracle. So Oracle's based in Seattle. I have a connection there. I'm hoping to meet with them soon and just talk about how could this one little app get onto their bigger
marketplace,
right? Because once you get in there, then I'm doing less of the direct outreach, and I'm actually saying, hey, Oracle Hospitality Suite Network, or what is, who are some of the people that you do business with that are already using your marketplace that I can also reach out to? And, it's co-marketing via an existing channel that the hotels already use.
I think this is where my hang up is, and this is one where I don't know the space, I don't know the industry, so this is one where it'd be fantastic if I'm proven wrong and you just run with it and make it a wild success. But generally speaking, it sounds like what you have is the app, and then all of the logistics are kind of put onto the hotel. The hotel has to go and get the plants. The hotel has to maintain the plants. The hotel has to move the plants between rooms. But you'll have an app that'll help with that logistics. And so, if you were to tell me, hey, Marty, the hotels are already doing this, and they just got a really bad, inefficient way they do it, and I've got this amazing app, I'd be like, sounds like a home run to me. But if you say, hey, I've got an amazing app for a process that doesn't exist today, but it should exist, then I'm like, oh, that seems like
it is a new model. Most hotels don't offer you a plant in your room. So it is a new disruptive idea to offer that as a living amenity. So if you go to any hotel, to their website, look at their amenities, a newer one is you can bring your pet during your stay. You can get, order a bottle of wine, get
but it just seems like
espresso, whatever. But this is something new. And the market is millennials. Millennials now spend billions of dollars on travel. And millennials are one of the first that basically say having a plant nearby them is a must-have. So there's market research that proves that.
I think it's hard because you've drawn the line that you don't want to deal with the plant itself. So we've got to solve for that. Someone's got to solve for that.
If they already have a plant service provider, and there's a lot of big ones that do that, then, and of course I would partner with them. I would help them do the testing, vet it out. Maybe there could be some gain in them as well, right? Maybe I could figure out a way to help those existing plant suppliers to gain more business. Maybe they've never gotten into the hotel market, even though they're in restaurants and everywhere else, but they need to get into a new market as well. So it's all about connecting and making it win-win for whoever's involved. And just, the big picture is to introduce this for all of us, valuing plants as living art and an object. They're not just an object, they're a living being that we need to have near us.
Appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I think something that's interesting. I often talk about, usually it's about the pitch where like a mission can overrun, kind of a business.
Yep.
And a pitch has to be as much about the business as a pitch, as the mission. And in this case too.
Sometimes worry about like willing a world to exist that maybe we can all agree should exist or we want to exist, but you haven't shown me that it does exist yet. And if you showed me that it exists and that there is a demand or people are doing this and they're just doing it in a really inefficient way, and you've created a really efficient way to do something that everyone's doing, that seems, again, home run. But in a world that you want to try to will to exist, I'm worried that it's already an uphill struggle to build a business.
Startups are already hard.
And so now you've added, much more, a bigger, heavier boulder to push up that hill.
Totally. It's almost like you're upping the difficulty level when you're not, when it might not be the easiest thing in the world already. Awesome. Well, let's bring our third founder to the stage, shall we, Marty? Awesome. With a round of applause, let's welcome our third founder up. What's your name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, are you ready to give us your minute pitch, get some feedback?
Yeah, more or less.
All right. Well, it's time. Do it. You have a minute. What are you building?
Yeah. So I have a question for the audience. Have any of you ever read like a New York Times article, halfway through reading the article, you're scrolling and then you get a paywall, that dreaded paywall that pops up and it says, hey, if you want to continue reading the article, you're going to have to pay $20 a month, subscribe. Any of you get that?
Yeah.
Well, would any of you rather just pay maybe like 60 or 50 cents just to read that one article?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right, awesome. With Micropay, we solved that problem. So Micropay is essentially an online digital wallet where people can pay as low as 0.001 cents for all online services, products, SaaS, media, and everything in between. Essentially, we want to help reduce subscription fatigue and those hard to cancel, free trial traps that we all kind of get caught in every now and then. But we don't just help, consumers. We also help businesses. We help businesses capture more revenue by increasing their conversion rates and getting revenue from those people that don't really want to subscribe to their tool. So essentially, we want to help.
That's about a minute. Round of applause.
All right.
That's yours.
Oh, I know.
I'd actually love it if you told me, because everything's being SaaSified. Everything's a SaaS subscription, right? And you're talking about we have unbundling, bundling, unbundling again, and you're talking about a world where like, what if we un-SaaSified everything? And that would just immediately spark like, oh, tell me more about, I don't want to take a 5-minute meeting and make it a 15-minute meeting. I'd want to take a 30-minute meeting and make it a 45-minute meeting because I'd want to hear more about this. It's like, I heard the CEO of Unit say, embedded everything. I was like, oh, that's better than embedded fintech. Let's hear more, right? It's just a cool catchphrase, but whatever yours is, you got me with like, what if we didn't SaaSify everything? And that you're speaking to a new world. And that immediately, like, just the one thing is like, you got me, and you only had a minute, and you got me in like 20 seconds.
You told me about before and after, and you told me, and you reminded me that before is not as good as after could be.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
The other thing, I guess, while I'm rambling, just came to me as you were speaking. I was like, oh, you know what I'd really want to do? Pay the fraction of a cent or 10 cents to unlock an article, is if the article were about me, my startup, for example, I'd want like a URL string that I could tweet, and anyone that clicked it can read it, but I'll pay. Right? I'm covering the, kind of like with authors where they give away the copies of their book. But I also thought, like, for a company, hey, I want everyone on my team to read this article about what's going on in the industry. I want to make sure when they click this link, the company covers it. Because I'm not going to buy everybody a subscription to Financial Times, but I want them all to read this one article. Because what happens now in companies is that one person creates the PDF, right? And then emails it around to the whole company.
I never do that.
I think with our company, we get to kind of create a whole new suite of businesses that couldn't exist. So, what if a startup was able to do that, right? What if a startup was able to do what you were just talking about? Before Micropay, it would be hard to charge consumers 10 cents or even 1 cent or even 0.001 cent. But using our company, we could see companies like New York Times doing those kind of charges, or other startups being created to solve those kind of problems.
Well, so let me ask this question. This has been tried before. I've heard this pitch over the past 10 years, I think at least 4 or 5 times. Why have the past attempts failed?
I haven't necessarily heard it being attempted in the general sense, at least from my market research. I've seen one company trying to solve it, and that we could probably talk about that after, why we think we're better. But we have seen a lot of and what I've been speaking to, a lot of Web3 companies kind of trying to solve that problem. It's much easier to solve in the Web3 realm, but we think consumers aren't really ready for that yet.
So I definitely think there have been attempts that have even launched, so definitely look more into it, and I can try to remember what I'm thinking of too. But the reason I bring that up, and the reason Marty's ideas really resonated, and you should give him some points in your company. But the reason those ideas are so attractive are because I think it's actually much harder. We say we'd want to pay a few cents, but to download the extension, put it on our credit card, decide to do this many times a day is actually much more difficult than we give it credit for. But then a lot of your ideas solved that by changing who the buyer is.
Right.
And that feels like, to make a consumer decide to pay in micropayments all the time. Again, I feel like it's been tried, and maybe you'll be the one to figure it out, which would be great. But you changing the buyer and saying, well, a business has an incentive to unlock a paywalled article that says good things about them. Or a startup founder reads something and says, I want all of my team to learn from this. I have an incentive to pay some amount of cents per read to send it to my team. Because I think that'll be your challenge. When you were pitching, I was like, I've heard this before, and I think I have. The challenge has always been, when push comes to shove, we don't wind up doing it the way we think on the micropayment side, or at least that's the history in my brain. But this solves that it's a consumer that has to make that choice all the time, but instead says, hey, there are other people who can make this choice in higher quantities, in bundled quantities. And
I was gonna say, that's interesting. It's good that you've sparked excitement.
Yeah.
Dangerous in that we might start pitching.
Reverse pitching ideas. Yeah.
But I don't know how you're actually doing the money movement, because fractional charges of credit card on small pieces would add up, and so I don't know how you're alleviating all that. But if one of the off-the-cuff things I would do is create an account and then let you accumulate a number of credits and then do a big charge at the end. But that would happen with a company, right? Instead of one person reading one thing for a dime and me getting interchange on that dime, it would be one company, getting 1,000 readers and 1,000 dimes.
So that's essentially what we do,
Okay.
but we don't just
So
do
you
that
build
with
up
readers.
a credit.
Yeah,
and
you almost build you have a centralized place
Gotcha.
where you kind of aggregate everything all into one place. And for your use case, it kind of helps with the articles. But we're envisioning a world where all media, for example, articles, all software tools, all games and data providers could essentially.
This is one thing I think we missed. This is not a startup about reading news
Publishing
articles.
only.
This is just about micropayments.
This
And
is
you've
just
got a platform that
micropayments,
you just gave us one use case. And
Yeah.
we got
What's
really
it
excited
different?
about
Yeah,
that.
I wanted a use case that related to everybody.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
Oh,
has had
interesting.
So I
that
said
experience.
that's one dangerous thing about the pitch.
Yeah.
Because now I'm like, oh, you pulled the rug. I mean, I still like it, but it's like, oh, I got really excited. Now I can't unthink the thing I saw.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
I'm distracted.
Yeah. I mean, you only get a minute. I'm trying to
Wait,
make
but also
it.
sorry,
it's good, but dangerous.
one of the
But this
things
is
now
really
that
good
it is
feedback,
micropayments in general, why that versus Stripe? Is it you think there's there's some sort of price point for things that you're targeting? Is that if I wanted to charge, instead of $5 a month for a SaaS app, but instead 50 cents a month instead of Stripe, I'd go with, what's it called?
Micropay.
Micropay.
Yeah, great question. And of course, that's more like a 10-minute pitch where we talk about, why we're better than companies like Stripe and that sort of stuff. So Stripe charges 2.9%, but the key factor is they charge 2.9% plus a fixed 30 cent fee on top of that. When you're dealing with charges as low as 5 cents or even 0.001 cents, you can't charge that additional 30 cents, right? It's going to eat away at the profits. And actually, even from talking to some other SaaS founders, if there's a dispute with a Stripe payment, the company will have to pay $28 on top of that. So imagine you're charging somebody 10 cents, they dispute the charge, and now you have to pay them back $28. That's really annoying, right? So where we solve that is we only charge 5% with absolutely no, base.
How are you able to do that? If Stripe's doing X, how are you able to do Y?
Yeah. So we are able to do that because we centralize all those payments into one wallet. So essentially, we're not charging you per charge. We're able to avoid, that
as
per
a user,
transaction.
or are you pooling it even amongst users? Like,
No, we pull it per user. So think of it as like, you upload $5 into your wallet.
So it's a prepay, not a credit.
Yeah, I mean,
that'll be a go-to-market challenge.
We're thinking of doing both. First, we're going to start with the prepay, and then do credit. It was actually a big topic of contention, which way we should go first.
I would say it's go-to-market challenge, and it's not, because one thing that I like is, again, figuring out what your CAC is. If you're instead of giving me a $5 Amazon gift card, just preload me up with $2.50 and give me a free account. I'll go nuts on it, and then once I've used it up, I'm like, oh yeah, let me reload.
Yeah,
the Starbucks model too.
We're going to give
Because
all our
reloading is
customers,
easy.
yeah.
Buying for the first time, I'm like,
it's going to be really hard. We figured that out. So we we're going to give kind of like Uber, for Uber, they first notoriously gave everybody $5 for free. We're going to give everybody their first 5 transactions for free to really stimulate that
awesome.
that growth.
I do think last thing before I let you go, from
That's
a pitch
smart too.
perspective.
First 5 transactions, because it's not that's sounds like a bigger number than if they were all 5 cents. Like, you gave me a quarter.
Yeah.
And then I realized it, and then I
they could be $5. Some people, they could be. It depends on the size of each transaction.
I think what we learned in that back and forth, and about the types of transactions you're targeting and the difference between you and another payments provider, are all essential to investors that you're going to talk to.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially people like me and Marty, who are startup junkies, and he's invested in a lot of fintech. I've invested in some fintech, and we understand some of these mechanisms. So until then, I was kind of like, okay, it's just about this whole, can we get people to read and decide to pay, some cents to read? Versus what you're talking about here is, hey, here's an infrastructure problem with how the web works. Here's where some people might try to compare us to a Stripe, but actually here's how that doesn't work. And here's the new paradigm from an infrastructure perspective that we're proposing. Then the questions would be, can you pull it off? What are the unit economics on the wallet? What's the go-to-market challenge of the wallet? Are there other ways to pool transactions that aren't user-based that might allow you to avoid fees? But the point being, that's what's different about what you're doing. What's different about what you're doing is how different you are from Stripe. It's not the payments on an article thing, the paywall on an article thing. So think about infusing that into your pitch, because that's what's going to get people to think you've got something really different, versus a use case that's interesting, but is more based on hype and consumer behavior and changing consumer behavior, versus a very fintech pitch about infrastructure.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. We're ultimately a fintech micropayment infrastructure.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you probably already know this, because your pitch was nice and smooth and articulate, and you got the crowd excited in us. But if you don't know this, one thing I think you have to do in your position is, it's unfortunate, but you have to tailor this pitch almost to any audience you go to, and maybe you could segment some of them. But when you pitch an associated A16Z, you're going to need the big broad picture. When you pitch the GP in charge of fintech, I think you just go right into Stripe. This is why Stripe can't do this, and you just talk about interchange, and you just get really technical really fast. But when you're doing something that's a little bit more like this, I think you played it just right.
Yeah.
Go
when
to the audience.
General pitch, I want something relatable to everybody.
Yeah, it's a good way to kick it off. But you wouldn't have done this same Q&A when you get that GP in front of A16Z's fintech side. I think you just go right in, Stripe can't win here, and here's why. Because you immediately got my attention. Stripe can win anywhere. Stripe can do anything. You can win where Stripe can't win.
Yeah.
I want to know why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we think there's a huge market and a huge potential right there, and we want to capture on it.
And I think it was a great use case too, because I think everyone can build. The only thing, because I noticed it with our own startup that we're pitching, is that we used some use cases, and there were 2 that I think I told you this, I just learned quickly. I can't even say them because it took all the air out of the room. I can't say landlord. Well, I can't say renter, because everyone's like, oh, you're doing landlord tooling. It took all the energy out of the room. And then I couldn't say anything around crypto Web3, because it's not that they were against it. It's just that's all we talked about. And I don't want to spend 25 minutes on it. So with yours is a great example. But the problem is, we spent the entire time talking about it, getting excited about it. And so you're like, I'm like, yeah. Everyone has rented an apartment. They all get signing a lease. It's the perfect example. But it's it was so hard to I gotta find a freaking different example.
Which again is a challenge, but the good news is either way, what you're shaping is a funnel. So just think about where in that funnel you need someone to go and therefore customize accordingly.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
Guys,
stuff.
Amazing feedback. And if anybody wants to learn a little bit more, I'll be here to the end.
Awesome.
And
Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, from a infrastructure versus use case standpoint, we often want to talk about the use cases as a way to say, hey, people will want to like implement this or put it in their systems. But the nerdier the investor, the more it's actually just going to be about like, here's where people can and can't do something technically.
Yeah.
Technically, both literally from a technology perspective, but sometimes technically from a rules, finance, cost perspective. And that's a balance a founder has to really
Yeah,
nail.
no, I think, and this is an interesting one because there's a lot of different facets. One, you got to get into it really quick, really fast, like why what you're doing is different, why this time is different, and then hit me with a few different use cases of like why you're gonna win. Like, because I think even to the woman who pitched previously, like it's smart to focus on your niche, find your niche, right? Dominate one niche first, and then get the rest of the world. And maybe this founders will be micropayments on unlocking articles, right? But whatever it might be. But I do think the one thing that nobody likes to hear about that I alluded to that I think is super critical, is tailoring your pitch. I see this most with folks who are struggling in the current economic climate to find a new job. They want to create one resume and one cover letter, and then they'll say, "I applied to 1,000 jobs and no one wrote back. Like the economy sucks." I'm like, "Yeah, the economy does suck, but what sucks more is you sent the same 1,000 cover letters to everybody." And like I hate to tell you, like you have to custom write that cover letter. You got to do some research. And I think the same thing is going to be, not every founder has to do this, but I think he has to do it where every investor he goes in front of has to do a little bit of due diligence on them and custom tailor it. But I also think he will get, because of what he's building and how he's building it, he'll get a lot less no's than everybody else. So he has to put a lot more upfront time than other founders, but he'll make it through the slog a little bit quicker, faster.
Yeah, that conversion funnel will go better if he can nail that first step.
And I'll also say, it's not just because I think he was charismatic and did a good presentation, but fintech, money movement, these are just hot topics right now. Like it's the same as if you had said AI. It's like, oh, let's say AI anything, right? So he just is the benefit of being in the right vertical at the right time.
Yeah. Well, shall we welcome our fourth founder to the stage? All right, round of applause.
Thank you.
Absolutely. What's your name?
Great. My name's Zoe Levitt.
Zoe, nice to meet you. Are you ready to tell us what you're building, get some feedback?
Yes, I'm ready.
You have a minute. Love the energy. Tell us, what are you building?
Thank you. So Glass is powering an experiential data layer for consumer brands, empowering brands to identify, engage, and reward consumers who are socializing around their products. I previously led social and entertainment investing for the venture fund of AB InBev, the world's largest beer company, where I saw firsthand how brands spend over $80 billion per year annually on experiential marketing with little to no consumer data or ROI traceability. Glass solves this problem through a gamified loyalty SaaS platform that enables brands to reward consumers for purchasing in-store and online, but also hosting and joining events, inviting friends, sharing photos, and creating that social experience around the product. So imagine a world where a beer brand doesn't just put up billboards around the sports stadium, but actually sends free drinks to people hosting watch parties at home with their friends, powering that direct, emotional, and digitized connection, driving sales, loyalty, and absolutely unprecedented first-party data across purchasing and social occasions.
That's about a minute. Good job.
Can I kick off with two things?
Go for it.
So the two things that I really loved. One is, something that I think is important is that everyone on the venture side is always going to put you into a bucket, in a category, right? And so immediately when you were talking, I was like, oh, this is loyalty. And then eventually you got to it and you said loyalty. It's like, oh, she confirmed that I don't think I'm wrong. I think this is a loyalty play.
Great.
And then you'll immediately find out if they like loyalty, they don't like loyalty, right? Because they're like, oh, I've been looking for someone in loyalty. They're like, oh, loyalty, right? And with loyalty specifically, it's sometimes 50-50. Whereas like AI, everyone loves it. But the other thing I loved what you did is you really subtly, without ego, slid in where you'd worked previously. And I think anyone that knows what they're doing is like, oh, okay. I think if anyone's going to know anything about loyalty in this space, she's probably going to be an expert. So now it's like, even if they were dozing off, I think, oh,
One, it's
what does she
AB
have to
InBev.
say?
I'd say like almost right afterwards, like the makers of, because not everybody
yes.
knows that they're like, what are some of the brands?
Definitely
behind?
Budweiser, Stella Artois.
So just like if you go like
yes.
3 of them right after, because I was like tuned into the same thing,
Yeah.
but I was thinking, oh, I want her to remind the crowd who might not, and again, it depends who you're talking to, obviously, if you're talking to someone who's an expert in the space.
But there's another trick I like with pitching is, because the reason why I think some people would perk up as soon as they heard that background is, oh, if worst case scenario, I want to learn something. I want to learn something about it. And I think this is a great opportunity in your pitch. Let us learn something we didn't know about loyalty, where I'm going to walk away and the next time I'm talking to other investors about loyalty in the market, say, oh, hey, did you know? And I look smart and fancy, and then you gave me that benefit. But it does lead, when I walk away with information that I didn't know previously that I now value, I all of a sudden have like our rapport, our connection is heightened. So it's just a subtle thing that I like to do. Can't always do it. It doesn't always work in all pitches, but I think in this one, it's a great one.
Well, and it also goes to the whole thing that you're building. So let's get to, kind of what you're building. You at some point said gamified SaaS community platform, I think, or was it gamified?
Loyalty
platform.
or the SaaS
That's a
model.
lot.
Yes, yes.
And
That
also, I
makes sense.
think part of it is not about, like the gamification part is it's like you have a basically B2B to C
Yes.
model, and the gamification's on the C side.
Yes.
And so like I wouldn't say it's a gamified SaaS platform. The SaaS part is probably very ungamified.
Got it,
And then the
yes.
user experience is very gamified. So like we're a SaaS platform enabling businesses to gamify loyalty and community inside their customer base or something like that. So just like
it is a mouthful.
Yeah,
And it's again, either someone's going to love it. It's a 50-50 toss up on this one. So it's a hard one. I would find if there's any kind of metric you have that you can throw right in front of that, right? Like we increase sales by 3x, or we increase retention, or we reduce churn, and you've got some number, whatever that number is, however you get to it. Then I'm like, oh, then like all the word doesn't matter. You could say anything you want. I want that, right? Because that's all. Because at the end of the day, in loyalty specifically, none of it matters unless you're moving a metric, right? So what metric are you moving? And then we can get into how you're doing it.
Yeah.
because so much has been done in loyalty and in fintech point of sale and all of that jazz. And so the ability to say we're driving a difference, we're trying to drive a specific difference. But let me ask that question, this feels, again, I said this in the last pitch, and I think this is always the challenge. I feel like I've seen things in this space before.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway studying the history of people who've tried building something similar?
Yeah. So
Mike, sorry.
Oh, sorry. So our differentiation is twofold. One is our go-to-market strategy, which is focused on food and beverage. These brands that are very reliant, starting with alcohol specifically. These brands that are entirely reliant on distributors and then retailers, so lack that direct consumer connection, and they're not going to be 100% D2C anytime soon, or likely ever. So they need that through other channels. And then the second differentiation is through the gamification and the matching to social occasions, communities, and events that we're doing.
That's been done. That second part's been done before, right? I mean, people have done like loyalty stuff where it's trying to get you to go to a bar and check in and you'll get something for it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't say that to say that you shouldn't do it or make it part of your pitch, but your first one, that felt very different as a pitch. I don't know if you had already mentioned it as part of it, and I maybe didn't catch that thread.
No,
but I love that
didn't.
idea. So,
Great.
let me, for the sake of the crowd, like kind of repeat it. Like you're saying, a lot of attempts in this space have said a bar wants more customers at their bar. They want to drive, people to come to the bar. So if you check in 4 times, we're going to help you make your 5th beer free or whatever. What you're suggesting is a beverage brand doesn't have the ability to currently kind of connect with the consumer in that way. Unless it's direct to consumer. And most beverage brands, for example, are not direct to consumer.
Right.
And so we enable some sort of combination of matching, SaaS platform, whatever else it might be, so that if you check in at 5 different places that all carry what's like an emerging drink. I'm going to use a weird one, Prime energy drink, that Logan Paul drink. Weird example. But okay, Prime is at 7 different bodegas, and every time if they're partner bodega or whatever it is, and I check in, now my 8th is free.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That feels like a super unique.
Is it check-in? Is it check-in?
We can do check-ins. We can do receipt capture. We do Instagram and TikTok integrations. So we're building out that cross-channel.
And then I'm getting what, some kind of credit, some kind of points?
Sorry. Yes, exactly. From the brand, not
and then
from
the brand,
the retailer.
and I'll be able to redeem that for some kind of thing.
Yes.
So this is like, Joe Camel 2.0. Like I'm gonna get the Marlboro Miles and I'm gonna get the jacket if I collected enough of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
for CPG, for food and beverage
Well,
brands.
that's kind of why they did it, right? I mean, cigarettes, but
Yeah.
but they were the two most famous. Like everyone wanted those Marlboro Miles. I mean, kids would just go around and pick up. They wouldn't smoke, but they'd pick up trash and rip off the Miles and try to win stuff. But here, I assume people would even, to their benefit, want to gamify it, try to check in multiple times, get more points.
Exactly.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And they're right. They're dependent on this range of, the grocery store, the restaurant, the bar. So there's such a wide variety, a very fragmented long tail of points of sale and then social occasions as well. So we can really expand that market and give them that access to who is buying to that individual.
What does social occasion mean? Like birthday party or the Olympics?
Yeah. Birthday, starting with, so far we've worked with brands that already sponsor, say, music festivals and aren't getting data from that. So they can offer rewards live on site, gamify. But then I think there's a real unbounded market opportunity in moving into the birthday parties and bachelorette parties and all the small-scale social occasions where brands, they're gone from influencers to micro-influencers to nano-influencers, and then they want to reach that, on the ground, in context occasion to spread the word.
Talking about how you enable this, I think is one of the other key portions of your pitch that I want you to add is like, what we enable is for whether it's the consumer or that business to, and I'd get specific on this, especially in an extended pitch of like, a birthday party can become one of these moments. I think that's challenging. I think that's part of past attempts in this space. Like it probably involved hashtags in a weird way and like other informal, because it's not obviously, it's hard to make an essential app until there's a reason. And so to say, hey, here's the tool set we're giving to make this a high frequency event that you can check in or you can have this social occurrence. And I think that user experience, again, is key for you to like demonstrate as part of the pitch. Again, and then tying it back to the fact that those brands otherwise can't tap into it at all. Like, whatever history I have in my head of folks who have tried this, they go through point of sale or they go, kind of again through retail locations that already have the ability to bring people to their spot. It's super interesting. Well done. Kudos on the pitch.
Great. Thank you.
So on those 4 pitches that we just heard, let's do our first takeaway of the night. What's your takeaway?
Just from the startups themselves or just in pitching?
The pitching mostly.
So I think a few sort of patterns I saw. One is, don't get hung up on the mission. Really just put your capitalist hat on. Think about how this is a business, how you're going to monetize. Even with that last pitch, what I really wanted to hear was distribution, right? Because that's what got me excited about her previous role and position. And again, nothing else matters. If she tells me she's got pre-baked in distribution and she's going to go to market, like, cool. I don't care if it's loyalty or what it is. It sounds like she knows her stuff. She knows her industry. I'm in. Let's go for this. And then others are tailoring your pitch to your audience, really making sure they understand that the value of name dropping where she worked is going to land on us. It's going to resonate. Whether if someone is in payments or not payments, that's going to resonate. So I think that was really important. And then it seemed like we were 50-50 on doing good on time. So I think that's probably the hardest one for folks is, a minute, like that's fast. I get it. That's hard. But even when I'm given 10 minutes or 30 minutes, it's never enough time. So you've always got to you always want to come short. I think, even if you're given a minute, I wouldn't take the advice of use 60 seconds. I'd say come in at 50, 55 seconds, leave yourself some breathing room. It's a little bit of a flex when you're like, you end early.
Conversation, right? And so like, if you feel like you need the 60 seconds, then you probably aren't creating enough of a hook. You want it to be a complete hook, but it doesn't need to necessarily be everything you want to tell the investor. That can happen next, right? And so complete your hook, and then, can bring that person along for the rest of the detailed conversation.
Your goal isn't with a pitch, in my experience, your goal is not to receive a check. Your goal is to buy more time. Right? And then you're probably gonna have 2 or 3 of these meetings, and then you're gonna get your check.
Kickstart the imagination.
But just buy more time. That's the only thing you're here to do. And then you've got to be watching them. I got to be seeing if you're excited, if you've dozed off, if you kind of looked confused. You can kind of tell, even with these conversations, when I want to find a better word for this, but like combative, like hey, we're just going back and forth, and like we're not getting there. I won't say it's the founder's fault, and I won't say it's my fault, but clearly, we've all been on that first date
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this is not working. Can we
Yeah.
just get the check and like shake hands and end it amicably? Do we have to really sit through the whole song and dance? And that feels, I think that's it's a shitty experience as a founder when you're kind of like, okay, they're not into it. Cause then you're like, either you think they don't get it and they're an idiot, or you feel like crap and like the thing you put
You're
your heart
not
and soul into.
getting it.
Yeah, it's like, no, it's probably a communication error.
Right.
And then, hey, it's your pitch. So I'm going to put the onus on you.
Totally.
Figure out how to make it so that I'm understanding. Right. Because it could be that I'm an idiot and I'm not getting it, but get me there, or just realize I'm the wrong kind of investor.
And all the ways in which you're making a more effective and a quicker pitch, you're tightening the feedback loop of getting to the iteration on your pitch for that next person down the line anyway.
Yeah, but the goal for me, if you got 1 minute on stage, is how do you make sure that at the end of this, when we get off stage, like we're like looking for you.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Where are you? And
Yeah,
I want
more of the story.
right? And then like it almost be now it's dangerous that I gotta say it, but like who are they gonna go talk to first?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now I said that, I'm gonna talk to you first, because then you make the other founders feel shitty. But like that's kind of your goal.
Yeah.
Is not only do I want them to talk to me afterwards, I want to make sure I'm the first one.
Yeah.
I want them lining up. I want these two fighting to talk to me.
Totally. I love it. So let's do our little bit of a for this crowd, a fake close. This has been episode 23. Marty, thank you so much for your insights.
Yeah.
Well done. This was a fun one.
Wait, does that mean I get episode 23 and 24?
You are 23 and 24. Round of applause for that.